Hello everyone, I'm currently working on a campaign with the European route of the historical thermal towns. It's one of the cultural routes of the Council of Europe, and in 2 weeks I'm going to visit one of their member countries, Greece, and some of their sites there. So I'm very happy to have their managing director, Simone Zagrodnik, today with me, who will tell us a few words about that fantastic cultural route. So, Simone, welcome. Can you please introduce yourself?
Thanks for having me, and I'm also excited to work with you now, Thea. Thank you. Um, well, I'm the managing director of the European Route of Historic Thermal Towns, as you said, and I have been in this job actually for 2 years now. Before that, I was the head of marketing in the German town of Wiesbaden, also a thermal town. So this is actually how I got connected and yeah, excited about this whole theme.
For those unfamiliar with it, can you briefly explain what European route of the historic thermal towns is?
Sure. So the route was actually certified by the Council of Europe in 2010. And there are now, as we speak, 49 towns from actually 17 countries, but 16 European countries. So we have one international partner in Brazil. So we are all thermal towns with historic roots as thermal towns all over Europe. And if you see my map, it's actually from Portugal all the way to Turkey and to Georgia. So this is how many members we have. And there are big thermal towns, spa towns, big names, for example, Vichy, Baden-Baden, Spa, Bath, the Budapest, the grand names many are familiar with probably, but there are also very small towns that probably people not have heard about before. So, and yeah, that's basically the rough numbers for the moment.
I know it's a hard question, but what are some of your favorite places alongside the European route of the historic thermal towns?
It is a bit a tricky question because let's say the countries are also different. And as I said, we have big towns and small towns. Maybe I can just tell you what's very fascinating and what fascinates me rather than having, a preferred or best place, because what all these towns have in common, a thermal town, a spa town. Probably many people know something about the towns that I mentioned before, but what is in common is, for example, that they have all these big parks and gardens. You have this grand architecture that was built in the 19th century, grand buildings and with casinos, for example. So you have really typical, specific, things in these towns. You have casinos, you have the parks and the gardens. Of course, you have the public drinking, the water, the fountains, where you can just go and walk around. And many times these fountains are so beautifully decorated. But of course, you have also all these thermal establishments that are historic, where you are swimming in historic pools. And then you have these super modern spa and wellness centers, but everything related to the thermal towns, the thermal water. And another thing are, for example, the train stations, which is also fascinating. So this is why it's really hard to pick something specific. Let's say that, or another thing that just comes to my mind, in many of the towns, there are funiculars. You go up the hill to have a beautiful view on the town. And all this has a long history because these towns have been created and have been developed to entertain the guests and to entertain the spa guests. And it's just amazing to see how many towns have so much in common all over Europe.
Yeah, it's always interesting. And I think especially these kind of cultural roots are really amazing in that sense to show all that, well, specific things, but also joy and cultural heritage we share here in Europe.
Yeah.
Well, my next question for you is, how are you supporting travelers visiting some of those locations?
Yeah, we what I just described, that's exactly why we think, today you should learn that it's not only about the waters and, let's say, a health has aspect in coming to a spa town. There's so much more you can discover. And I just mentioned, for example, the train stations, just a sustainable way of travel, for example, by train to a spa town, or discover the gastronomy, which is also usually very rich. So that actually has led to the idea that we developed, we call them the theme kits, some very specific themes where we really invite our guests and people that are interested to discover more than the waters. So I'm speaking about gastronomy, for example. So many of the thermal towns are very close to vineyards, so really huge wine areas. Some of them, for example, in Italy, are UNESCO heritage sites, the vineyards, for example, in Italy. So then we have a town in Spain, Caldes de Montbui, which is like our leading town in producing things from thermal water. You have pasta with thermal water. You have different, of course, the usual things, soaps, etc. But they make soup, they make pasta out of it. And all these things we really would like to give as ideas to the travelers. So on our website, historicthermaltowns.eu, you find these inspirations. And now, in the framework of the campaign that we are running at the moment, we also have the website thermaltravels.com, which exactly shows, and in the future should develop more, also to give some kind of ideas from where we try to lead the visitors and the interested people to further information. And of course, the destination websites of our towns are other sources that we really try to combine, at least in the first place, show the travelers, a certain kind of a direction, and then let them go from there.
Well, European route of historical thermal towns, as well as some other cultural routes of the Council of Europe, are great examples of cultural tourism. Besides the spa facilities, what are some other places or experiences visitors could enjoy in those locations?
For example, some are really also connected to rivers. You have, for example, rivers where you can just go on boat trips. What I think is one important part is of the tradition in our places are the festivals.
Mm-hmm.
So everything that is related, let's say, to festivals and events, we may often have traditional events. If it's a music music events, theater, huge theater festivals, then horse riding, equestrian horse racing is also something connected to tradition, sports, tennis tournaments. If you just go back, and this is something, if somebody really is interested in discovering the history and the development of traditions, I think you certainly find it in spa towns. Also connected, of course, to famous people, artists, writers, poets. So much of European history kind of was made in spa towns. It's incredible. And all that whole package is, I think, a true inspiration. And also something maybe to mention at last is spa towns, I think, in a logistic way, if you look on the map, they are often quite close to the capitals in Europe. So what we think is, talking about connecting and flying and traveling, normally in a range of within 2 hours from huge main airports, be it Paris, Frankfurt, Milan, Madrid, Rome, you have a spa town within 2 hours. So that is, I hope, also something encouraging if people are interested to fly and to discover.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much. I think with your descriptions of these places and the beautiful photos behind you, you definitely inspired at least me to visit those places. And I'm really looking forward to explore some of your sites in Greece in 2 weeks. So thank you so much for this short interview.
Thank you, Tia. And I'm really looking forward to accompany you and that you can discover our thermal towns. So enjoy the trip.
Thanks. Thank you.